Okay, this is one of the most important videos that you'll hear when you're dealing with sellers. You've got to be the doctor to the seller's problems. You want to be a really successful real estate investor, you must consider yourself as the doctor to the seller's problems. You know, just like medical doctors, sellers must see you as being professional. So look professional, that's the first thing. Well educated, acting in their best interest, and bound by a high code of ethics. That's so important. You don't want to show up in flip-flops and shorts. You don't want to do that. I'm sorry. You're not going to be successful if you do that. Now, the process of seeing a doctor is the same wherever you go. Wherever you go to any doctor, any kind, for any condition, he's going to follow this particular procedure. It's 3 parts. But most new investors, they do it backwards, even experienced ones, I've found anyway. They spend all their time telling the seller about their company, how long they've been in business, all their services, how great they are, instead of finding out what the seller wants or what the seller needs. I'm going to repeat that because it's very, very important. Most people do it backwards. Okay, most new investors. They spend all their time telling the seller about their company, about their services, and how great they are, instead of finding out what the seller wants or what the seller needs. Okay. At the end of the conversation, they do know all about the investor, how long they've been in business, and what they can do. But the truth is, the seller doesn't care. The seller does not care about the investor one bit. At best, if they hadn't fallen asleep and tuned the investor out, they've already made a decision. You know what that decision is? Never do business with an investor that takes no time to understand them. Begin with a thorough examination as step number 1, just like doctors, right? Okay, let's get into that. Just as a medical professional would never think of treating you without following these 3 steps in order, you as a doctor of selling would never allow a seller to force you to sell without you going through your 3 stages as well. In the examination phase, you ask excellent questions. So important. Ask excellent questions, carefully prepared in sequence, which are geared to give you a thorough knowledge of the seller's condition or situation. Now, the first thing they do is to ask you to fill out a medical history form. And they want to know all about your ailments, your illnesses, and your injuries. Your family's medical history. Are you allergic to any drugs? Have you seen any other physicians? Who have you seen? When have you seen them? What's a history form for investors would be the seller's questionnaire, which they fill out to help us determine what their real needs and wants are. Okay? Then the doctor comes in and asks you lots of questions, right? And begins to examine you. He listens to your heart with a stethoscope and your lungs. He taps your knees and elbows with a rubber mallet to check your reflexes. He looks into your eyes and ears and up your nose with a little flashlight. He makes you open up your mouth and pushes down your tongue with a depressor. And he makes you say, ah. And he looks down your throat and you start coughing, of course. Now, for investors, this examination would be what? What's the first thing you do? You do a thorough examination of the property, right? Where you fill out everything you see right or wrong into the property, and you take notes of what the costs are for repairing, rehabbing, or minor fixing. Now, depending on the answers to these questions and the results of the inspection, more questions will be asked to see what other things we need to know before prescribing a solution. You ready for this? When I go like this, make sure that you remember this part. The key is to finding the seller's pain. I'm going to repeat that. The key is finding the seller's pain. Investors often miss this important variable, therefore they don't really know what strategy to take when dealing with the seller, whether it's subject to or lease option or wraparound mortgage or a private note on a free and clear house. If the seller was not in pain, they would never have called you, but they did call you because they knew they had a problem that needed fixing. You've got to discover the financial impact or economic value of the problem. You've got to get the seller to tell you how much it's going to cost them, or how much sleep they're losing because something isn't right with the house situation. Remember that phrase, the house situation. Now diagnose the seller's needs accurately. The second phase is that of diagnosis, right? In the diagnosis of a seller, you would repeat the results of your examination and double check to be sure that the problem you've detected are the real pains being experienced by the seller. You would ask additional questions to confirm and to corroborate. You and the seller would mutually agree that this diagnosis seems to be an accurate description of the condition or the problem. Now make the right prescription, okay? Once this mutual agreement has been reached and you've identified this pain accurately, you can move on to phase 3. This is the prescription phase, where you show the seller that your service is the best available treatment, taking all the factors of the seller's situation into consideration for their pain. You show that on balance, what you are suggesting is the best for all situations. Investors who sell the way that doctors treat patients find that their deals proceed far more smoothly and result in bigger and better profits in less time. Spend more time asking great questions and less time talking about yourself and your company. And you'll create more opportunities, close more sales, and make more money. By asking better questions and being interested in the answers, you can discover what the seller's problems and issues are and then offer a solution. Now most of the time, if they're not motivated, they're going to tell you straight away, right then and there. Hopefully you did not make a trip for them to tell you this, but you learned this when you spoke to them on the phone using a seller questionnaire that we use to gather information. Now during each conversation you should ask detailed and pointed questions about what the seller is trying to accomplish and what their goals and objectives are. Here's a great question. Are you ready? What would you like to see happen? And then shut up. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what would you like to see happen here? It's important to shut up and listen. And take notes as they're talking. And if you want to be respectful, you could say, would you mind taking notes so I don't miss anything? Okay. All right. Another good question is, what would you like our company to do to help you? Now, most of the time they might say, buy my house. This question really allows me to find out what the seller is thinking and exactly how to help them. You can also listen for intangibles, indirect things like urgency. I really need to sell this house this week. That kind of thing. So I don't really have to guess or pressure them because getting to their motivation is just a couple of questions away. And once I ask those key questions, I know if I have a deal or not. And to seal the deal, here's a great question. Are you ready? When would you like our company to help you in your situation? Now, if the seller tells you they have no real timeline, no urgency, that they will just wait until the property sells, this is often a sign you're not dealing with a motivated seller at all. Make sure you protect your time by being willing to walk away if it becomes clear that there isn't enough motivation. No matter how the seller responds, your main goal is to open up a line of communication and develop a conversation about the property and the needs of the seller. I know that some deals take 5 to 7 contacts before they close, so an important aspect of our system is to follow up. I'm going to repeat that. I know that some deals might take 5 to 7 contacts before they close, so an important aspect of our system is follow up. So many people don't follow up. Even though they may not do business today, they certainly call you back 3 to 9 months later because you keep sending postcards and letters and they're constantly on their minds. Here's where you separate yourself even further from other investors or buyers. I used to get surprised when they called me after a meeting or a phone call that I had with them over 12 months ago. But by continually sending them letters and postcards, they remember me and they call me because I was the first person on their mind to help them with their house situation. So if you treat your real estate business like a doctor's by understanding and diagnosing a seller's problems, you'll make just as much as a doctor, or maybe even more. So I hope this has impressed upon you the first, as far as the mindset. What do you take away from this? The seller doesn't care about your company, doesn't care about you. Cares about how you care about him and how well you listen. And we learn that in the motivation step of our negotiation training. Thanks a lot for listening to this.